the first player that's the highest up the draft boards right now. I mean, it's undoubtedly Breece Hall, right? And Breece Hall is the 101 in 99% of the people's drafts, and that's already been beat to a
Nope, it's Kenny Pickett.
Oh, stop it. That's already been beat like a dead horse. Like, I don't want to sit there and continue to talk about Breece Hall at the 101. I want to talk about him in startup leagues because I want to see what people are paying in order to get him. Now, he's the RB6 overall, which I think is extremely high, and 13th right now in drafts. He is going, it's the first pick in the second round, and I think that's a little bit absurd.
You're absurd.
The issue with, so is that one QB or super flex?
That's one QB, but yeah, the point was RB6 essentially.
Okay, I don't think that's too high in one QB actually. Like I think he's in tier 2 of running backs for me, which is 2 to 6.
Is he?
Yeah, because running back sucks. Like yeah, everyone there is like a really legitimate reason to not want to roster every running back outside of Jonathan Taylor, where the only reason to not roster Jonathan Taylor is cost. But other than that, like CMC is old and he hasn't played in 2 years. Najee Harris is like not old, but he's old for a second-year player, and he was really inefficient. And the Steelers just drafted a quarterback that everyone thinks sucks. DeAndre Swift was actually the worst runner in the NFL last year. Javonte Williams is probably in a timeshare.
Passes where all the fantasy value comes from, Jacob.
Right, which is great and all, but I'm just saying like your current options for the RB2 in fantasy are a dude who has not played in 2 seasons, a old rookie who is extremely inefficient on a probably bad offense, a guy who's literally awful at running the football, a guy who's the starter was just re-signed to play on the same team as him, and then a rookie. Like those are your options for RB2. Like who else is your RB2 overall? Like Eckler's old, Mixon's old, Barkley's old and injured, like Dalvin Cook's old and maybe suspended, Alvin Kamara's old and definitely suspended. Like there's like none of these, all these guys have issues. So yeah, to me, like it's just what we've seen is there was this legendary 2017 running back class, and they've aged out to the point where they're no longer elite dynasty assets. They might be elite assets for this year and this year only. But there's a large space that unfortunately the classes coming up didn't occupy. Like 2018, Chubb, I think has done everything that you'd hope from an NFL perspective, but his team hates him and refuses to let him catch passes. Ronald Jones sucks. Kerryon Johnson sucks. Sony sucks. Penny sucks. Barkley had his career destroyed by injuries. Like the 2019 running back class was never good. And of the 2020 running back class, it looked like it was going to be incredible. And then injuries stole Dobbins and stole Akers. And it's just, it's tough. So I don't know. I think Breece Hall should be the RB6. I'd actually probably have him the RB5. I actually prefer Breece to Swift, to be honest, because Swift is like really bad at running.
So Shane, we have Javonte Williams, who's been, the hottest thing out of a Cracker Jack box up until Melvin Gordon got re-signed.
What is that phrase?
He made
the hottest thing out of a Cracker Jack box?
Literally, that makes no damn sense.
It's about the toy, the Cracker Jack box, like little pamphlet thing.
They don't do toys anymore. I don't know what the hell you're talking about.
They still have the little tattoos and stuff. I just got one the other day. What? Why is it? What? So anyways, the Melvin Gordon's threat to Javonte Williams, is that bigger than Michael Carter's threat to Breece Hall?
Yes, yes, but you should not. I mean, Melvin Gordon should have been baked into that anyway. Melvin Gordon should have been baked into. You should have known that Javonte Williams wasn't going to be there by himself, because the Broncos pretty much did everything but tell you that. And Michael Carter is a trash can. So
he
now
was good last year.
So now that he has a real running back on that team, he's going to look even worse by comparison purposes. And they're going to go, no, there's literally no reason. I'm sure Michael gets some run. Michael Carter gets some run, but Melvin Gordon's a much better player than Michael Carter ever will be at any stage of their life. Melvin Gordon could be 65 years old and it'd be better than in his prime Michael Carter.
Shane, have you ever heard of David Ricardo?
It sounds vaguely familiar.
Yeah, David Ricardo is the economist who came up with the theory of comparative advantage.
No. He's the guy from I Love Lucy, I'm pretty sure.
Maybe that too,
no,
but no. Here's why I think that Carter is actually. I agree that Melvin is significantly better than Michael Carter, but why I think that probably I'd rather share backfield with Melvin than Carter is for a couple reasons. I mean, the first one is that Melvin is going to be like 29 years old, so I don't think he's a long-term issue for Javonte Williams. Now, it's entirely possible that the Broncos have just like made an ideological commitment to committeeship, and they will just replace Melvin with another Melvin. That's totally
God,
possible.
don't say that. We don't say that.
Well, I just said it. But here's the issue. Like, if you're deciding like, okay, so the idea of comparative advantage, like it doesn't actually matter, if like one country can produce a certain good more efficiently than another country. It's if there's one country that say can produce every good most efficiently, it's still not in their interest to produce all of them. Like they're going to produce the one that they can most efficiently produce, and then other countries will produce the goods that they can most efficiently produce, and they'll all trade with each other. And I think that there's a comparative advantage aspect to the Jets backfield where Michael Carter has a core competency as a pass catching back. And that's an area that Breece Hall can certainly do, but he doesn't really have any comparative advantage at it. Whereas Javonte and Melvin, I think, are more redundant in a sense. So I think like at the floor outcome, Breece is safer in the sense that I think he has the early down rushing on the lock. Whereas there's a possibility that they just run the same split they ran this year in Denver. But I think from like a longer term or from an upside perspective, if Javonte is just so good and Melvin's just like 10% more dusty than he already is, I could see a scenario where Melvin just becomes entirely redundant to Javonte in all aspects of the game. Whereas I could see a world where they look at it kind of how, even the Colts look at it with like, okay, Jonathan Taylor's obviously a way better player than Naeem Hines, but he's like way, way, way better as a rusher. And he's either the same or slightly worse or slightly better in the passing game. So let's just play Hines here where he has that comparative advantage. And then we'll be able to preserve Taylor for where he's significantly better.
All right, so let's move on real quick to the
I'm very upset that I like put in all this work coming up with a 200-year-old economic metaphor, and you just said, let's move on.
No, I liked it. I liked it a lot. I took a lot of notes.
I actually loved it, and I do think that the upside is there for Javonte Williams, but I'm not going to try and follow that up with some archaic English language.
Do you want to talk about
we
the
want to try and
invisible
output?
hand? Talk about the invisible hand.
Yeah, the invisible hand actually is what Ronald Jones has. That's why you can't catch passes.
Exactly.